I wanted to mention just quickly about the centers. So this center has been around a long time due to the dedication of a number of people. And what's brilliant about the centers is, as you said, some of you are from down the street. So these centers exist so we can get help with our minds. And we might be fine the way we are, but something brought you here, and there's like a little spark, and you kind of question and you wonder, you know, is this all? I mean, I wondered in Washington, that was this moment where my political life, which was enormously successful, was empty for me. It's just, I was like, this is it? I get more money, and I get a bigger apartment, and more clothes, and I get a car, and that's it, and still I die in the end? So honestly, I had that in DC. I had this moment in 1986 when something was kind of waking up. So I ended up at a different center, but somehow, you wander into something, and then maybe you get some information, and it can maybe help your mind and open your heart like that. So they're really important, these places. And they're all in different forms, and I used to manage retreat centers, run retreat centers, so they're big properties, small city centers, and places like this outside of the city. So they're quite precious. We don't really realize what it's like when you have a center nearby down the street like that. So, and I think personally the center, like all the centers, need support. So anything you'd like to invest to help, whether it's an hour of volunteering or anything, can be really, really helpful like that. So I just wanted to thank everyone and really tell you the benefits of these centers like that. So one thing I just want to ask some people to start, we're going to have like a mini retreat. And I know you may not be able to come to all the sessions. We have tonight until 9, and we have Saturday and Sunday 10 to 4. And there will be a lunch break from the 10 to 4 time, and there will be breaks also in between. And what we're going to do is take time to do, in a sense, like shorter, as if you're in a retreat. I'll introduce you to how you do it. Have some people done retreat? Some people here done some retreat? Okay. So if you're new to retreat, fantastic. And I always, when I heard people did retreat, before I did retreat, I kind of was like, what's that about? This mystery. And so then we actually were on a group retreat, which is the best way to start, like you're in a group, so that we could do together these sessions and learn how to do. And I'll explain, there's many different ways to do retreat, and there's many different ways to meditate. So you just get a little taste right now, this weekend, tonight, like that. So one thing I do ask is if you can please turn your phones off right now. That would be really beneficial. So even when they vibrate, honestly, first of all, you don't have your phone on retreat, so you want to get into good habits, because once it vibrates, your mind goes there, to the phone. And then you're going to try to look at it, and then your mind's going to be over here. So it's just one thing I suggest if it's possible. And we will live, I promise you. We will live through the phone being turned off. Yes?
Do you mind if I record this?
Yeah, you can record, yeah.
Okay.
Sure, yeah. Okay. So the next thing we need the green Tara books and the gold prayer books, if we can. So we're going to do a practice involving this green goddess, Tara. There's also, this one, we won't move that, but this is Tara, an emerald green goddess, and there's 21 versions of her. So if you can just hang on to the gold prayer books, why don't we, hang on, let's do those after. We'll do those later, because it's hard for people to hold them in their lap like that. So sometimes what you can do at a center is, if people are sitting in chairs, you can get TV tables. And you can move the chairs back, and everybody can have a TV table in front of them with a cloth, and then the book on the table, like that. It's just an idea. Okay. So just relax, hang on to your books. So this Tara, there's again 21 versions of her. And there's different versions because we need different things sometimes. The standard green Tara that we're used to is enlightened energy. So the cover here, This is green Tara. And when we visualize, we're going to visualize her. We're going to do some practices with her. And you don't visualize her solidly. She's in the nature of light. Okay, and I'll guide you through everything. And she's the kind of person that you want to turn to when you need a parking space in the city. If you have trouble with your job, trouble with your rent, or your landlord, or your partner, or she's enlightened energy. She kind of blows through obstacles like that. But the main thing is we don't want to ask her for something mundane. Okay, like I need a new car. You want to ask her for something about your practice that's going to lead you to enlightenment, that's going to lead you to be like her, because once you're like her, then you have no obstacles to benefiting others fully. And that's really why we practice. You look a little bit like green Tara right now. She's got her green on. Okay? And then the best way to do retreat, so what I'm going to call this is, and I'm just explaining a little bit more right now, is deity practice. This is a deity. Okay, an aspect of the Buddha. That's all. It's an aspect of the omniscient mind. And we have all kinds of different aspects of the Buddha. Okay? So if you look for a moment at the iconography, so where did he go? Just I must have been in another center, I'm thinking. Okay, so I'm trying to focus on another temple deity, but can't really see those over there very well. Okay, so we have various deities around the, okay, so if you take this one, this is a bit wrathful looking one, and you see sometimes they have a consort. We think it's about sex. It's not about sex. It's about transformed desire. Okay, and when you transform desire at a higher level, it's very powerful, and it can be very beneficial. Okay, but if you look at this guy here with the flames around him, looks like he has a kind of bull face. Okay, it looks scary, but it's actually the wrathful manifestation of wisdom. That's who he is. Okay, so there's wisdom, who Manjushri, who has a sword, a little bit more peaceful looking, golden in color. Right? He has a sword because he cuts delusion with the sword. It represents infinite wisdom. And then a lot of deities have a wrathful aspect, and that's the wrathful aspect there. Because sometimes you need a little bit more power to go, we know there's good forces in the world, there's bad forces in the world, so sometimes you need somebody a little bit more powerful to go against the bad forces. What we're really going after is the negative tendencies in ourselves. And we're not harming ourselves, we're just trying to counter delusion as it arises. So we talked about that last weekend. Okay? So Tara as well, as I mentioned, 21 versions of her, and some of them are wrathful. Some of them have fangs, like that. Because a little bit more of a power babe, right? Okay, so you do want to think about them, that they are real, that they're like real beings. What happens is because we have obscurations, meaning sometimes I get angry, sometimes I'm depressed, anxious, jealous, confused, any of those things are called delusion, and what they do is they cover over our true nature. That. So, we're just talking about kind of the aspect of the deities and things like that. And so what we're often working in is, anytime a delusion arises in my mind, can I apply some kind of antidote, something beneficial? And these deities are there to support us. When we counter them enough and we've purified all the negative tendencies, okay, you start to have what's called realizations, deeper insights. Deeper insights. And when you have some very strong experiences in meditation and understand a little bit more of the nature of reality, you start to see deities there in the paintings. Not just a picture, but as if they're really there. So what we want to do with our behavior now is we want to get in the habit as if they are there. Okay. So when a high-level teacher comes in, or if you see His Holiness the Dalai Lama, you have people a little bit more respect, like that. So we just practice now, as if, training our mind that one day they'll be there. So when you do deity practice, you have an aspect, and you have what's called, we're going to call this a sadana, and that is a method of accomplishment. A method of accomplishment. It means that by going through the practice in this book, okay, and interspersing some other types of meditation in that, I can accomplish this path. I can accomplish her. I can be her. Now you might say, well, I don't want to look like that. I don't want to look green. No, it's you'll manifest, you'll be Tara as you are. Okay? But complete, clean, clear mind. Blissful every moment. Like that. And how do we sometimes relate to these deities when we're kind of in our little bit, how can I say, busy lives, busy world, all of our anxieties and agendas and motoring through, right? How can I possibly relate to someone like this? Well, a lot of us were raised Judeo-Christian in that culture, so we, I don't know what your thoughts on Jesus are, or Mary, but we have some feeling about them, and we say, but they existed, right? So basically the Tibetans would say, well, these beings existed and they appeared to somebody in deep meditation like this. But what happens is when I look at this, it's a mirror of the person who painted it. And this one, I'm not sure who painted it. I bet it says it inside. Maybe not. Okay. So, and what happens is a lot of these were painted by Tibetans, but not all. We have Western Thangka painters now. These are Thangkas, okay? So they're painted in the image. So it could be that if I'm an American practitioner, and we may not all be American here, but if it may manifest, Tara may manifest to me in a form more looking like an American or somebody I could relate to. Yeah, but it's nice to kind of think that they're there. One experience I had at Laudo, at this retreat center, I was a new Buddhist. I had just done my first group retreat with a group of people, and I learned a little bit of what to do, how to do these sessions, and why I was doing it. And then I went off to do a solo retreat by myself in this very remote place called Laudo. And I was told by my teacher I'd wanted to do some preliminary practices, and one of them is making water offerings. So you see these water bowls? They represent certain things, and it's done in a very nice practice. And it creates patience in your mind, and it creates prosperity for you. Okay, that wasn't why I did it. I did it because my teacher suggested I start with that particular practice. And then a friend of mine that he sent me to told me there's no water at Laudo. That was really fun, right? So it's to go to do this water retreat. So basically I was instructed to bring a pipe and all this. And so one of my teachers said, I was very afraid to go. I knew I needed to go, but I was afraid to be on my own for 3 months, and it was very cold, and they didn't have electricity, and you just eat potatoes all day long. And I said, could you, say some prayers for me? And he said, I will, but you just pray to Tara. No worries. So I had done some of the Tara praises. We're going to do some of those there in the back of this book. And it's a praise. It's a 4-line verse to each Tara, kind of saying, and it's got a nice little catchy beat to it. And I had done those with people, and I was kind of like, well, I don't know. I don't really relate to Tara. What did that mean? But I went up there, and I brought the pipe, and we moved the pipe. We laid it to a 20-minute walk away to this spring, because I needed water for the retreat. And we brought water. The people there helped me. We had water, but the pipe was on the ground, not buried. It was plastic pipe. And almost every day, at least once a day, I had to hike out because the pipe broke, because a yak or a cow kicked it apart, and I'd have to hike out sometimes 20 minutes to find and to put it back together to get the water coming. And I did these water offerings about 12 hours a day with some other practice in the morning and in the evening. And every day I would kind of talk to Tara, because I was alone there in silence, and I'd just be like, please let there not be an interruption to the water. Please let there be water, because I needed the water to finish the retreat. And it was going to take a couple, 6 weeks or 7 weeks. And so I was kind of in a little bit of a hurry doing it. But anyway, the day I finished, the next day the water finished. And I was so convinced that she was really, I just felt her presence there, kind of helping, not that I ever saw her. So I think we really, in some ways, when you call from the heart to these deities, the same way somebody would pray to Jesus, I think things can shift. And I think there's always beings out there that want to help us. So doing retreat is a way to make a deeper connection with whatever aspect of the Buddha you're focused on. Okay? So can I just ask any of you for a moment right now, because I really do like to tailor retreats or classes to the people that are here. are there any specific things that you really were hoping would happen tonight or this weekend like that? I'm just trying to get an idea of what you were expecting. Please, anything? I thought you had something. Something? No?
No real expectations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just open to what occurs and open to how it happens.
Okay. And yes.
I guess I have a lot of opportunities to go different directions in my life right now, and the job-wise or the career-wise, and I just can't make a decision which
Mhm.
way to approach, which way to go. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that there will be a way and there will be a guidance or a sign or something that I will finally make a decision and just follow that.
Okay, so from this weekend, you're saying?
Yeah.
Hoping to get a sign. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's something you could channel in a sense into the sessions that we do, like that, to really get in touch with Tara to say, can you, I would like some help. Absolutely, like that. I can't say you'll have an answer, but
Right.
the more open, absolutely. Yeah.
I misunderstood a bit about what you were saying is, yes, I'm at a very critical point in my professional life, very important for the next few weeks. It's sort of like, it has to go here or it's not going to go there. It's a very stressful time, an awful lot of work. And what I came here for is, it's interesting you're talking about green Tara tonight, because there's a lot of things trying to get to me. There's a lot of barriers there that are in the way. That's where I'm at right now.
Right. Yeah, so, and what I would say is when you have these ideas in your head, sometimes we'll go into a retreat and kind of say, like, maybe I get a little help with that, a little support right now. I wouldn't put too much expectation, because then we get disappointed, but certainly I think if you're open to things, and hopefully it'll be worthwhile to give some retreat instruction and meditation on the Lam Rim like that. But no, that's helpful, so I would definitely, yes, please.
I would like to share that I was just practicing like 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to have a more understanding of the mudras in the offerings. And then I went to YouTube and I looked for mudras practice, and I found a video from you practicing the mudras for the tantra, right? For the Sadana.
A video of me
Yeah.
doing the mudras.
The mudras.
Oh.
So I said, okay, well, I have tried to practice it these 2 weeks, and then yesterday I just was browsing into the Bodhichitta centers. Said, okay, she's coming tomorrow to the retreat, to the Bodhichitta center. I'll go. So I just came. I was open to see.
Great, great. Because we're not going to be talking about the mudras this
I
weekend, but
understand.
that way, that's
I
great.
just came.
Very serendipitous. Wonderful. That's
Yes.
great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else that, yes?
Well, I'm here because I've been reading the book Re-Enchantment, Tibetan Buddhism Comes to the West by Jeffrey Payne. And it mentions a chapter on Lama Yeshe, chapter on Tenzin Palmo, and it mentioned
FPMT?
And then you're here, and so there's that connection. And I watched part of the video you did about meeting your teacher. And I'm here.
From, which center was that from? I'm wondering.
The lecture you gave, the talk,
Where did I give it?
it was in 2013. I don't remember.
Okay, I wonder, yeah. There's a lot of things out there, I have no idea that people put these on YouTube. People say, I saw your, and I'm like, what? Now I'm kind of used to that there's things out there, I have no idea. But I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, a lot of synchronicity there. So.
Yes, and so this is an FPMT center, just to clarify, and it's a certain organization. It means the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition. It's a long title, but these are our teachers, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and I don't think we have a picture, Lama Yeshe. Yeah, Lama Yeshe, right there. Those were the founders, and we're in the lineage of the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. There's 4 Tibetan traditions. This is one of the Tibetan traditions, the Gelug tradition, and it's an organization that has about 160 centers around the world, and very inspiring. It's been around about 40 years, And we have some other teachers connected to us, and this is one of the centers like that. So there's a whole comprehensive education program from beginning and intro courses, like Buddhism in a nutshell, to intermediate courses, and then advanced courses in teacher training. So you get everything you need, and then there's online components, videos, we have bookshops, and our headquarters is in Portland, Oregon, like that. But the centers run autonomously. So we just use the education materials and get guidance from the main teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, like that. So it's nice to know. So there's a lot of different Buddhist centers around. It's good to check out different ones to see what fits you and what you might like. And then it's good to settle on one, and you can go a little bit more deeply. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, when you said four, Tibetan four, is it, which one?
This is the Gelug tradition, the Gelugpa, or Gelug tradition of Tibetan Buddhism.
And the other three?
The Nyingma or Nyingmapa is the old ones. Nyingma or Nyingmapa, Kagyu or Kagyupa, and the Sakya or Sakyapa.
And then Dalai Lama practices.
He's Gelug tradition, but he's very much into something called Rime. Like, we're very non-sectarian. I mean, that's really a practice for all traditions. That, you know, mine is not better than yours. It really
Right,
depends
right.
on what teacher you connect to, what center you might connect to, and what practices you might be interested in doing. But they all the Tibetan traditions lead to getting enlightened for the purpose of benefiting all others. They're Mahayana traditions. Mahayana, a Sanskrit word, Maha being greater. Maha means greater, Yana vehicle, greater vehicle. I like universal vehicle. You're trying to get enlightened to benefit all others, like that. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to start, and I want to just, I think most of you are familiar with meditation posture, but some people are new. The most important part of the posture, and it's perfectly fine to sit in a chair, is have your feet straight down if you're in a chair, so that your spine, that your body's balanced. Or you can sit like that, you're fine. The main part, because of that, is you want to have your spine as extended as possible. Okay? And so one other thing I'm going to mention is to try not to lean too heavily against the back of the chair. Okay? Your back will be straight, and it doesn't create such an obstruction to the airflow of the body. But again, you want to be comfortable. So find what is comfortable, but the spine being extended is the most important part. Okay? In our tradition, there's many different postures, okay? So in our tradition, we have the palms face up, right palm on the left, thumbs are touching, and it's right just a level below the navel, and it's right against the body. And this is because it keeps the body erect. If your hands are out here, you start slouching. Okay, so it's right against the body. The thumbs touching creates an opener at the heart chakra. There's an subtle energy center at the heart. Okay, not at the organ, the heart, but in a subtle system at our core. And that tends to be an opener for that. And it also, the thumbs touching creates a nice flow continuously of the energy in our system. You can lightly close your eyes. If you get very drowsy, because I know it is Friday night, a lot of people are tired, open your eyes slightly to let a little light in. The head is just slightly tipped forward. It tends to subdue your thoughts and distractions. And the eyes are focused towards the tip of the nose or the floor in front of you. Check that your shoulders and neck are as relaxed as possible. And if you find that you're swallowing a lot, it can be a distraction in meditation, you can curl your tongue to touch the upper palate in your mouth. Lips are lightly together, and check that your brow and your jaw are relaxed as much as possible. And take a minute right now to scan the rest of your body to release any tension you might be holding. Just bring your awareness right now to your breath, a normal, natural breath. And just follow the air moving in and out of your nostrils. Or follow the rising and falling of your abdomen, whichever is more comfortable for you. Try to stay with one of those. When the mind wanders, just observe you are off the breath without any further story or judgment. And then with gentleness directed toward yourself, bring your mind back to the breath. So a great way to start a meditation session is to first check the posture of the body. Find that comfortable position. And slowly focus on the breath to just allow the mind to settle down. Consistency is extremely helpful with this and beneficial. If you just sit once in a while, it's very hard to keep the mind focused. But once you have a consistent practice going, even it can be short, you have this place of coming home always. It's always available to you. So sometimes it's nice to just a couple minutes, and then what we want to do is look at the posture of the mind and set a positive motivation. Take a moment to just consider why you came here this evening. And see if you can also align that motivation, your purpose for being here, with a Mahayana motivation that's focused on getting enlightened to be of the most benefit to all others. See if you'd like to include that in your motivation. Great. Take a moment to set a positive intention. So please relax, slowly open your eyes. So I'm doing a little bit of introducing this before launching in to a session. Formal retreat, traditionally, people set up 4 sessions a day, 4 meditation sessions a day. The amount of time in those sessions varies based on the person. And however, you can have many shorter sessions during the day instead. So retreat is a way to get familiar with your mind more and more, and to counter negative tendencies, aspects, delusion, like that. You're retreating from delusion is what you're actually doing. So what we often do is you'd set up the 4 sessions, and then the break times are even more important than the sessions. Because what happens when you take a break is you're in a kind of formal thing, meditating, and it's hard for us. We're used to multitasking. We're used to being on our phones and on our computers and driving and working really busy. And so sitting in meditation for several hours a day is not something we're all familiar with, most of us, and we're not comfortable with it as a result. So the mind is flying around and very uncomfortable like that. So what you can do is then you start to learn like what times of the day are good for you to sit, and you get more familiar with the posture. And so then what we'll do is I often introduce Lam Rim meditation in my retreats. And what Lam Rim, most of you are familiar. If you're not, Lam means path. Rim is steps or stages of the path. Okay. And it takes us through our entire philosophy, including topics such as the preciousness of being human, death and impermanence, other realms of existence, refuge, karma, suffering, there's an end to the suffering, developing the good heart, the nature of reality, things like that, some of the topics. And so what we do is we analyze in those topics, and I always include a little bit of that meditation when I'm doing a visualization, some kind of deity practice, like that. And so when I mentioned introducing you to a sadhana, this method of accomplishment, okay, they're all very similar. So once you do one, you understand the format of all of them. And then at some point, you might take on one that's extremely complex. Okay, but this is quite simple, but they all have some similar things. They have prayers in them like Refuge and Bodhichitta. It always starts off with that. It has some prayers of making a mandala offering, like offering the universe. So there's some consistency. You're setting up a foundation to get you closer to an enlightened state. This just happens to be Tara. So let me just introduce you a little bit to Tara. There's some nice things in this book. If you have time, you want to read them, I think you could buy them or talk to the center, but I know they're available for sale on our website for the organization. Okay, so Tara is the female aspect of the Buddha, and I'll just give you some highlights from this. You don't actually need to turn to it right now, but she was originally born as a princess, so she really existed, as all these deities did, called Yeshe Dawa. Yeshe is primordial wisdom. Dawa is moon, or Monday, or month. Okay, and they said, and she lived in a world called manifold lights. So Buddhist cosmology, there's many different world systems, by the way. There's not just planet Earth. Okay, so Yeshe Dawa, primordial, like, you know, the moon of primordial wisdom. Okay, she was very devoted to Buddhist teachings. And it talks a little bit, you know, like that of what she was doing. And every day she would prepare divine cloth that she would offer to these Buddhas that she worshipped. You know, she had a really strong feeling about it. And because of this, she attained a very high level of what's called Bodhichitta, the enlightened attitude. Bodhichitta is one of the wings of the bird you need to fly to get enlightened. Bodhichitta. The other wing is emptiness, the view. Okay, so bodhicitta is the kind of skillful means, the good heart that you need to progress along the path. Okay. And then there were some monks that, and this reminds me of somebody I know in India, that they told Tara if she made prayers, and this you have to kind of take into the context of the time, if she made prayers to receive a male body, she could be of more benefit to living beings, okay? And that her prayers would be successful. And she said, many work for sentient beings with male bodies, but few with female. Therefore, I shall work for all sentient beings as a female until samsara ends. Okay? So I know I have, there's a few women I know that they said they're going to get enlightened in a female body. You know, one of them started a leprosy project in India many years ago, working in the poorest part of India. She's a very tough Italian woman, and she's amazing, and through her project, several thousand people now have been cured of leprosy. And I know what it's like to work in that part of the world, and the obstacles she's faced. She's incredible. She's unbelievable. Okay? So then it goes on talking a little bit about Tara, and when she gained very high levels of realization, she then changed her name to Tara, the Liberator, and it was prophesied about when she would live her life to basically lead all sentient beings to enlightenment. Okay? And then many different great scholars and great pandits followed this particular yoga practice of Tara, and it talks about things like that. So it's quite nice, I think, to really try to relate to what she's talking about. Okay, that's a little bit about Tara. So what I'd like to do is, for tonight, what you normally do the night you start retreat is you run through your practice one time to gain some familiarity. Not with any super deep level of meditation, but just so that you get a little familiarity with what you're saying. Some people talk about counting mantras. Okay, we usually have a mala. A mala is a Buddhist rosary that you count mantras on, just like the Catholics, okay? It's the same thing as to count prayers. So we are going to recite some Tara mantras, and these are used to count that. So what you do if you're in a retreat where you're counting mantras, sometimes you need to count a certain number. On the first night that you start the retreat, and you always start retreat at night, you don't count the mantras that night. Okay, so you might end up doing a mala, meaning one turn around the whole rosary, just to gain some familiarity, but you don't count that towards your total count. And then if you're in a more formal retreat, there's things like setting your retreat seat, and it's a cushion that you do all your sessions on. You set it in a certain way. You set retreat boundaries, meaning, you know, while I'm in this retreat in this place, I will not walk beyond that area there and that marker there in four corners. But again, a lot of it is more about our own personal thing. Am I going to be able to retreat from delusion in my mind? Am I going to work with my mind? So what happens in the break times is you come out of a session because we're not so familiar. The break comes and we're like, oh, great. So I can go to the bathroom. Now I can have something to eat or drink or space out. or, and then the whole deluded ordinary mind comes back. So the break times are really important as well, to be vigilant, to keep your mind. And so we're going to experiment a little bit tomorrow. Those of you that come back tomorrow, with what do? We are going to take some short breaks, and how to keep the mind a little bit subdued there. And in some formal retreats, people don't make a lot of active eye contact with each other, especially in a small room, because you want to keep yourself a little subdued in that space, so we don't junk up the space. Okay, so these are just some ideas that when you have time to do a little bit more retreat, you can experiment with. Okay, so let's turn to our Tara books. And sometimes people on retreat might use the gold prayer book, and they might have some inspiring prayers they start with, that they feel like they want to. It's a little bit of oiling up the mind. You want to kind of get things going a little bit, but I'm going to start on page 5. It says the actual practice. We're going to read some together, and then some of it I'm going to ask you to just stop, close your eyes, and I'm going to guide you through a visualization. Okay? So again, this starts with refuge. Okay, and for those of you not familiar with refuge, refuge is shelter. Okay, and in Buddhism, when we acknowledge that this is our path that we're interested in, there's an actual refuge ceremony you can participate in. You can get a refuge name, if you like. Usually a very glorious Tibetan name. Okay, and so refuge is kind of seeking this safe direction of what's really going to help me with my mind. What's really going to help me with, as some of you said, I've got a lot of job stressors right now. I need to have a turn and figure out how to make this decision of what's going to happen. So when those stressors come up, and I'm just curious, honestly, what do you do when you have problems? Any of you? What are your coping mechanisms? Please. What do? You read. Okay, you read. What do you read? Fantasy. Fantasy. I sometimes also read fantasy when I'm escaping, right? Okay, fantastic. Reading fantasy, escapism. We also escape through the movies, right, and television. What else do you do when you have a problem? Meditation. Okay, you're all very evolved. That's clear. Okay, we meditate. Fantastic. Helpful? Helpful. What else do you do?
I have to share with somebody and get an opinion,
Mhm.
or like a conversation. And so
Yep.
I have
Don't we ask our
Another
family and
person.
friends for help? Like, what do you think I should do? Right? We bounce it off of people. Absolutely. And come on, what else? Be honest.
Write it down.
Write it down. Uh-huh. We'll write stuff down. Sometimes a pros and cons list I've had. Recreational activity. Eating. Walking. Swimming. Watching TV. I mean, right?
Anything but dealing with the problem.
Anything but dealing with the problem is what we do. You bet. And so what happens when the fantasy book ends?
I mean,
You read another one. But what happens to your problem? Problem
I
solved?
don't see.
You don't see anything. Okay, is the problem still there or not there?
Well, it's there, but I don't like. I'm fine with it.
You're fine with it. Okay, that's good. That works then, if that works for you. And what about other coping mechanisms? When you bounce it off your friends and family, what happens? What kind of responses do you get? Helpful, not helpful? Does it sort the problem?
get another ideas, and of course it's their opinion. You can't take all of them, but it's good to listen for options and choices, and then you kind of sort.
Gives you new ideas. Do you ever ask so many people that you end up totally confused?
Yes.
You've sought too much advice, right? And where is their advice coming from? Unlimited perspective or limited perspective, would you say? Limited, and you're not sure.
What do you mean?
Do they have the answers? For sure?
Oh no.
No.
I don't expect.
Okay. So what we take refuge in Buddhism has the answers. The Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Okay, and again, I am just giving you information according to Tibetan Buddhism. I'm a Buddhist nun, and that's what this center is about. However, I'm not asking you to change religions, or if you have the answers in your own spirituality, in your own life, wonderful. Seriously. Please follow that. So I'm just giving information according to this, and I ask you, please thoroughly check up everything I'm saying. Okay, you really have to check up, put it on, cook it. How does it fit in my life? What she said. Is that really how it is, or is that not how it is? I checked. You ask your friends and family. I did this, many decisions. What do you think I should do? What should I do? What should I do? Well, they would either advise me from their limited knowledge, which sometimes was more than my knowledge. They would advise me from their agenda and opinion, what they wanted, what they really wanted me to do, right? Or they didn't know, or it wasn't helpful. So then I started to meet some teachers that seemed to, capital K, know. And it was most impressive. So in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we seek refuge and protection from more suffering. In the Buddha, on one level we have, there's the Buddha's statue, like that Shakyamuni Buddha we're familiar with. We've heard about this person that lived, 2,600 years ago or so. Okay? And on another level, we take refuge. What the Buddha represents is the omniscient mind, the all-knowing mind. We take refuge in, and so why wouldn't you want that, an all-knowing? I'd rather ask somebody who's all-knowing than somebody who's not knowing, or limited knowing. And then the Dharma is the philosophy, the underlying foundational philosophy. So ultimately, the teachings on emptiness, the nature of reality, because that frees you from all your suffering. Okay, why wouldn't I want to take refuge in that? Right? And then the Sangha are the spiritual community. It could be a center like this. It could be monks and nuns, fully ordained monastics, and ultimately it's Arya beings. Arya beings means those who've had a direct perception of emptiness, of the nature of reality. Why do we want to take refuge in them? Because they can tell us how they got there. And they have incredible, infinite empathy and compassion because they understand how we suffer because of the way we see things, the way we experience things. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So in a sense, the Buddha is like the doctor. They say the Dharma is the medicine, the Sangha, the nursemaids, healthcare practitioners, like that. We take refuge in them. So I want to go to refuge, and we're going to read this sentence. If you'd like to join, feel free. I take refuge in the Holy Guru, essence of all Buddhas, original grantor of all holy teachings, and Lord of all supreme beings. What Guru means here, Sanskrit word, spiritual teacher or guide. Guru. Okay, in our culture it's a scary word because we're used to cults and we're used to unqualified teachers that lead people to drinking a bunch of Kool-Aid to kill themselves, okay? That's not what we mean here in Tibetan Buddhism. So the real spiritual guide, the real guru, mirrors the highest maximum potential of ourselves as humans that is contained in us. Our Buddha nature can develop into that. We all have a seed or a potential in us. Now, everyone in this room, every being on the planet, has this seed or potential of Buddha nature. And what it means is we're not Buddhas now. We have a seed of potential that can ripen into a Buddha. Okay? So the Guru manifests externally from us sometimes as a teacher, an ordinary, could be the Dalai Lama. He looks like a Tibetan man dressed like a monastic in the Tibetan tradition. Okay? And he manifests outside of us to remind us of all the goodness, infinite compassion, infinite wisdom in us. We have that ability to be like him, or to be like him, or to be like her. We have that ability in us. Why are we not like that now? We're obscured, it's covered over by veils of delusion. That's all. That's all. Okay? So guru, and we get nervous about the word, but absolute guru is a sense, it's also the truth body of the Buddha. It's a long word called Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya, the truth body of the Buddha. So what does that mean, the truth body of the Buddha? In a sense, it's like the wisdom from which everything comes. That's not the way we see things arising, but that's really how they arise. Okay? So as you get into higher level practice, and because a lot of us are newer here, I can't talk at that level, and I know there's people at different levels here, but once you get, if you get or ever stay on this path and get into higher level practice, you can read and study more about Dharmakaya, the truth body of the Buddha, and that wisdom from which everything comes. So it's hard for us to conceive of now. We don't ever think about where do things come from. Okay? So that's what I mean by guru. It's an aspect of ourselves that's fully enlightened, fully manifest infinite wisdom, compassion, loving kindness. Okay? So let's read the next sentence. So we'll just go into the Sadana, and I'll make some commentary if it's needed. Please, Guru Buddhas, bestow on me the ability to unify my mind with the Dharma and be successful in practicing Dharma in order to achieve the graduated path. May no hindrances occur while achieving this path. So one of the things you want to do when you start a retreat is ask, please, whatever beings may interfere with me, please can you be pacified? Okay, I would like support to have no hindrances. Sometimes we do it formally with an offering that we take outside, like a little offering cake. Here we're just saying this nice paragraph. And so when it says the graduated path, that's the Lam Rim. Okay, can I make my little baby steps, and eventually I was here, but I made enough of those steps and now I'm over here in my spiritual realizations. Then we have 3 paragraphs. One is the practitioner of lower capability, one is medium capability or middle capability, and one is higher capability. We're going to read these paragraphs. What it does is it takes you through the 3 capable beings of the Lam Rim. So it'll scan right through the entire path. Okay, some of you familiar with the Lam Rim will recognize some of the topics. Okay, so let me just go through these 3 motivations. The prayer, the motivation for a lower capable being is, I am terrified that when I die, things will be much worse. And that actually terrifies me to practice. So we talk about in Judeo-Christian culture, God-fearing religion. Well, that's a God-fearing religion, okay? Buddhism is not a God-fearing situation. The fear here is a motivator for you to practice, okay? And then built on that motivation is the motivation for a middle capable being, okay? And that motivation built on, I'm terrified that when I die things will be worse. However, right now in life it's really not good enough. There's a tremendous amount of suffering that I experience, that others experience, okay? So I'm really motivated to practice to try to bring about an end to that suffering for myself. Then building on that, on those 2 motivations, I reach the higher motivation for the higher capable being, where I realize that even if I free myself from suffering, all these other beings are still suffering. And that's not really good enough for me. So what I'd like to do is get enlightened, and then I can be a benefit to all of them and possibly help lead them out of their suffering to full enlightenment as well. So 3 motivations, okay? And so what you'll do is, if you have that I'm terrified things are going to be worse when I die, what's the parts of the topics of the philosophy that are involved in this deal with the preciousness of being a human. Do we really ever appreciate how good our lives are now? Okay. This situation is passing away quickly, death and impermanence. When we do die, there's a chance we could end up in a much less fortunate state. What's going to help me in that state is my refuge. Okay. And once I take refuge in Buddhism, which is what they say the sacred gateway, the sacred door through which the teaching is entered, I then need to know how to conduct myself. Those are the teachings on karma. So all of those topics and details of those topics are contained in the motivation for the lower capable being. Okay? And then considering, even this is not good enough. I would like to end my own suffering. That would be great. So those involve all the teachings on suffering. There's different types of suffering. The first teaching the Buddha gave, suffering exists, the 4 Noble Truths, and also, helpfully, that there's an end to the suffering. And then, moving from there, the motivation of the higher capable being is developing bodhicitta, the enlightened attitude and developing the good heart. And then through developing very stable meditative stabilization, basically, I apply that to the view, the nature, the wisdom realizing emptiness. And so through developing bodhicitta, realizing emptiness, you can get enlightened. Okay, so those are the teachings that are contained in the higher capable being. So let's read these paragraphs. Prayer of the practitioner of lower capability. Please bless me to realize that I have received a perfect human rebirth, which is highly meaningful, for many reasons difficult to obtain, but perishable, transient, and fragile, decaying in the shortest moment because of its changeable nature. Thus my death is definite, but its actual time is most indefinite. And after death I am far more likely to be reborn in the lower suffering realms, having created infinitely more negative than positive karma in this life and all previous lives. Please bless me to comprehend how incredibly unendurable is the suffering of the lower realms, that I might take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha with all my heart, and realize the evolution of karma in all its profundity, that I might perform only virtuous actions and abandon all negative creations. Next paragraph. By practicing in this way, I will be reborn in the upper realms, but will still have to experience unlimited samsaric suffering because of uncontrolled delusion and karma. Please bless me to realize fully the evolution of samsara, from uncontrolled rebirth to death to rebirth, and to follow day and night the three higher trainings of the path: higher conduct, higher concentration, and higher wisdom, which are the main methods to release me from samsara. So let me just make a note about the three higher trainings mentioned here. Higher conduct is ethical discipline. Ethical discipline. And what I mean by that is refraining from killing insects, not lying to people. I'm just giving instances, okay? Not cheating people. Trying to be a good, kind person. Basic ethical conduct, right? And the reason that's the first higher training, okay, and then it says concentration and wisdom. Higher concentration, higher wisdom. So what happens is, if you want to realize emptiness, and everyone in this room can do that in this life, if you really put your mind to it, you need that to cut the root of your suffering. Okay? But in order to have higher wisdom, which is the third of the higher trainings, okay, you need to have meditative stabilization. You need to have that level of shine. There's 9 levels of shine, but you need to have a really full-on meditative absorption to penetrate the wisdom realizing emptiness, okay? In order to be able to meditate well, that's why you need good conduct. Because if you're cheating people and lying to people and, you know, practicing adultery and stuff, your mind is all clouded in meditation. You can't sit calmly. Because you're kind of like, all these little gunky bubbles come up. Okay? I know for myself in meditation, I'll have all these little negative, that's unresolved little thing. I yelled at that person, and it comes up. So the better your conduct, and it's something we work on daily. It's not something overnight. Suddenly, slowly you build this basis. Those are the 3 higher trainings. Okay, next paragraph. The sutra path. But as each sentient being has been my mother, and as most of them are in extreme suffering, please bless me to bring success to all by renouncing the perfect happiness of self and practicing the Bodhisattva's deeds of the 6 perfections with a Bodhisattva's mind of exchanging self with others on the basis of the equanimity meditation. Thus shall I have no sorrow in experiencing the samsaric suffering of all other sentient beings, for no matter how long, having trained my mind in the general path. So they're talking here about developing bodhicitta and talking about the 6 perfections, which is part of that as well. And then it also talks about a method of developing bodhicitta is exchanging self with others. So we're going to do some meditations over this weekend later on about those specific types of meditations. They're both based on equanimity, having equal regard, equal respect for all beings, those meditations. Vajrayana path. Please bless me to follow the quick Vajrayana teachings by feeling sentient beings suffering, very unimaginably unbearable for even the shortest moment, as my own, and to achieve the attainment of Shakyamuni Buddha immediately, at this very moment, by keeping my ordinations and the instructions of the Guru with the best and highest care in life for the sole purpose of enlightening all sentient beings. So when it talks about ordinations, you are not actually ordained with monastic vows. However, some of you, I believe, have tantric have some of you taken refuge precepts? Taken refuge? Okay. Do you know the 12 refuge precepts? Okay. Have some of you taken bodhisattva vows? Okay. How many vows are there? You got them on your whiteboard.
I know.
There's, yeah. Sorry. No, that's the mantra of the Buddha of compassion. Bodhisattva vows. Okay. Okay. Anyone here have tantric vows? Okay. So this is what goes on. Okay. It's automatic in a sense. What happens is we take refuge precepts, we take vows, and you kind of get excited, and we're a little bit of a competitive culture, overly ambitious. So the way I started was I happened to move to California when I got into Buddhism. I'm from the East Coast, but I moved to California, and I was among a very mature Dharma community. These were people much senior to me. They'd been practicing a lot longer, and they had initiations, and these initiations came with vows. So I kind of was like, all these people have vows, and they can be in that teaching, and I can't, so I want vows. I didn't know anything about it. I want an initiation. And this is what happens. Our minds get like, I need that. I want that. Grasping. Okay? It doesn't matter about that. It's about laying a good foundation, and then you slowly add on the roof when you're ready for that level. It's much more practical that way. Much more benefits your practice. Unless your teacher tells you to take a certain initiation. Okay? So then I did get pushed by Lama Zopa Rinpoche to take an initiation, and it came with all these vows, and so what happens is then people start collecting initiations like credit cards. And I know people, they come to the initiations, right, and they don't come to any of the teachings, even with the Dalai Lama. The last day of the teaching, sometimes he gives an initiation. And people missed all the other Lama Rim teachings, but they come and, is he teaching on the Lama Rim? I've already had that. Do they have any realization of it? No. Okay? But I've had that teaching. I can have that teaching a million times. I always get something else out of it. There's many teachings of the Lama Rim. It's not just one teaching. Many topics I just mentioned, okay? So here's the thing you want to do. If you took refuge precepts, bodhisattva vows, tantric vows, right? Please learn your vows. There's books about them. Please learn them, because this is what happens when you learn them. First of all, you cannot keep them unless you learn them. Okay? And if you learn them, and you keep them well, you will automatically get enlightened. That's why the vows are there. The vows are there to free you. They're not to make your life miserable, and they're not to make you so I can't go out with my friends anymore to the bar. No. They're not to restrain you. They're actually to restrain negative behavior. Don't you want that? So our culture, the way I was raised in a renegade generation, if a rule was there, I was going to find a way to break it. That's how I grew up, seriously. So this is really, so now I've really had to turn my mind, and a lot of it started when I got ordained. I mean, it started well before that, but when I got ordained, I lived in Santa Cruz, California, in that area. And I went out with 2 girlfriends not ordained shortly after I got ordained. And there are hot tub places in Santa Cruz. And we used to go out to relax. Friday evening, let's rent a private hot tub room outside, and you go, and it's very nice, right? And we're sitting there, and this particular hot tub place had a public sauna. Very nice sauna, but men and women naked together, okay? And so they said to me, well, you can't really go into the sauna. You can't do this now, and you can't do that, and you can't do this other thing. And for a moment, I started thinking, I was disappointed. Now I got ordained, and I can't do these things I liked to do, I said. I liked to do it. So I thought about it for a while. And then I realized, actually, the vows free me. They free me. I don't need that behavior anymore. I checked some of that other behavior, even after I was a nun, I didn't need to do it. It had no interest anymore. I was like, this again, right? So the vows actually free you, but again, you have to learn them and you have to keep them well. Some of you have 6-session Guru Yoga. Some of you do that? Anybody? Okay. 6-session Guru Yoga. This is when you have a highest Yoga Tantra initiation. You then have a daily practice to do called 6-session Guru Yoga. Okay, it's similar to this. It's got the same set of Refuge and Bodhichitta. We're going to get into some of those prayers. It's very similar in a way, but it's got more stuff in it. You can build other practices into it. But the reason it's called 6-session is, and all the vows are in there if you do the long version. So what you're doing is you're supposed to do it 6 times a day. If you break the day into 2, 24 hours, I'm going to take 12 hours and put them over here. Okay? And that's for sleeping, eating, going to the bathroom, working, some, other things, even though the work and the sleeping would take longer than 12 hours. But on average, that's for all that other stuff, getting dressed and blah, 12 hours. Then you have another 12 hours. Okay? So that means if you divide that into 6 sessions, every 2 hours, you're checking your mind. How often do you do that? Every 2 hours, you're checking your mind by checking your vows. If you read one set through, I go, first Bodhisattva vow, praising myself and belittling others. And do you know technically that vow is, that particular root vow is out of attachment. Praising myself and belittling others out of attachment. Because there's a branch vow, there's 18 root vows, 46 branch vows. One of the branch Bodhisattva vows is praising myself, belittling others out of anger. Slightly different. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to notice, oh, I was just telling somebody how great I was. Okay? And some people keep a book, and you write down what vows you're working on. You can have a Bodhisattva vow in the left corner, Tantric vow in the right corner, bottom part could be your refuge thing, or something else. And you have remedies. I messed up. I was telling somebody that I thought I was really great. So what I need to do is the next hour or the next day I'm going to be very vigilant about that. Or I criticize somebody, and I'm going to be very vigilant about my speech to make sure that I'm not trashing somebody with my speech. And then you can also have a remedy, a little makeup thing. So if it's directly that I yelled at somebody, I can apologize to them directly the next time I see them. If I can't think of a direct remedy, you do Vajrasattva practice. It's one of our purification practices. Okay, is everybody with me? Okay. So it's important, the vows. So Vajrayana path is Tantra. It's the highest level of our practice. It's the quickest path. It's working with subtle energy in the body. And the amazing thing right now about your life, whether you just show up for tonight and I never see you again, or you never come to another class, but what is so extraordinary right now in this life is this guy showed up 2,600 years ago, the Buddha, okay? And he happened to come to our world system, and whatever karma we have with him, fantastic, because he teaches the entire path, Tantra as well. So this guy turns up in the future, Maitreya, Buddha of loving kindness. He comes and he doesn't teach Tantra. So you can be a human and you can take teachings and have some connection with Maitreya, and you do not have the whole path there, so it's going to take you longer to get enlightened. Now, we have everything. Everything. No excuses. Okay? So it's perfect now. Perfect situation you have. It doesn't get any better than this, I promise. Even though you have problems, and it's samsara. It's nature's problems. It's perfect right now. Perfect opportunity. Okay, visualization. Just put your book down for a moment. I'm going to read a slightly abridged visualization. And just relax. You can lightly close your eyes. Visualize over the crown of your head right now is this beautiful green goddess, Tara. Sometimes they call her Arya Tara or Mother Tara. She is in the nature of light like an emerald jewel. She is about 6 inches in height, facing the same direction as you over the crown of your head. She's draped in beautiful scarves, beautiful jewels. And for those of you that have a guru and have a teacher, you can imagine she is inseparable from that being. They are one. So her left foot is bent in, and it shows she has control over sexual energy. Her right leg is outstretched to show she's ready to jump up and serve all living beings. Her left hand is at her heart. It says in the mudra symbolizing the triple gem, which is the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And I think it's a little bit like this. I'm not very good with these mudras. I think she's a little bit like this or like this at her heart. Okay? And then her right hand, she's holding the stem of what's called an upala flower. So she's got, I believe, by her knee, and she's holding the stem of the flower. The flower comes up like this. Blue flower. Tara. Okay? And the legs are kind of bent, but basically the left would be in and the right's a little bit out, ready to jump up. And later, if you want, you can come up and look at the picture. You can look at her here on your book. So just take a moment and lightly close your eyes. Try to imagine her over top your crown in that form. If that's difficult to visualize, imagine this radiant green light. And imagine right now at her forehead is a white syllable Om. And if you don't know the Tibetan syllable, visualize OM standing upright in the nature of white light. At her throat is a red A-H, standing upright in the nature of a red glowing light at her throat. At her heart is a blue Hung, or Hum, H-U-M or H-U-N-G. Again, radiant blue light at her heart, very tiny. And in the center of her tiny heart rests a moon cushion, like a moon disc, a white disc lying flat. And in the center of the disc is her seed syllable, Tam, T-A-M. So imagine this radiant green syllable standing upright, very tiny, in the middle of the moon cushion at her tiny heart. And imagine rays of light emanate from the Tam, from the seed syllable Tam, reaches out to all directions, asking the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to grant their blessings. And imagine the blessings come and the light, radiant green light rays come streaming back into her tiny heart and the seed syllable Tam, fully energizing her. So we'll hold that visualization there over our crown. We're going to turn to page 7. We're going to read these prayers together. So just above Refuge and Bodhichitta, let's just read this line with very heartfelt request. Please remain above my head until I receive enlightenment. We'll recite Refuge and Bodhichitta 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merit from giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merit from giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By merit from giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. 7-limb prayer. So these very 7 precious circumstances I pay homage, I make offerings. I confess negativities. I rejoice in virtues. I ask the Buddhas to stay until samsara ends. Ask them to turn the wheel of Dharma, which means teach. And I dedicate the merit. This is the shortest form of this very profound prayer. With my body, speech, and mind, I devoutly prostrate. I offer all offerings, both real and imagined. All sins and offenses amassed from beginningless time, I confess. I rejoice in all virtuous actions of holy and ordinary beings. O Gurus and Buddhas, please remain until samsara ends and turn the wheel of the Dharma for sentient beings. All my virtues and those of all others I dedicate to the great enlightenment. The mandala offering is offering a world system. You want to offer the most exquisite world you can imagine. And in the Gelugpa tradition, every atom of that world has infinite more mandalas. And so sometimes we put our hands like this in a symbolic gesture of the mandala. The ring fingers together, the back together, represent Mount Meru, the center of Buddhist cosmology. These parts here that are pulled apart are the 4 continents. We are the southern continent, Zambuleng. Okay, so it's just symbolic. Okay, some people have a mandala set, but just shortly. The other thing you can do is visualize. You want to visualize the most precious things you can imagine offering. And you can also visualize offering all the love you have ever experienced, all your precious family and friends, your precious life, all your goodness, happiness, like that. The best thing to offer is your practice, like that. So imagine it filling all the space. And we're going to recite this mandala offering, the bottom of page 7 in the next page. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. The objects of my attachment, aversion, and ignorance, friends, enemies, strangers, my body's wealth and enjoyment. Without any sense of loss, I offer this collection. Please accept it with pleasure and bless me with freedom from the 3 poisons. And then we say, please accept this precious Guru, please accept this mandala offering. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niratayami. Then you collapse the mandala offering into you, so may I gain realizations. Like that. Okay, so please just visualize again. So you can close your book for a moment. Imagine now from the Tara over top your crown, and imagine white light rays descend from her forehead to your forehead, and they purify all the negative things you've done with your body. Killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, like that. And imagine red light rays coming from her throat, from the odd, her throat, to your throat. So arcing the arc of the radiance coming around to your throat, purifying all the negativities you've done with your speech. And blue nectar and light rays coming from the Hong at her heart, curving around to your heart, purifying all the negativities you've done with your mind. And now imagine the white, red, and blue nectar rays together, arcing around to your body, your forehead, your throat, and your heart, purifying all the negativities of your body, speech, and mind. And imagine that all gross and subtle delusions are completely eliminated. And any idea you have right now of emptiness. So basically things do not at all exist the way they appear to us. They do not exist in a concrete, independent fashion at all. But everything exists depending on causes and conditions, on parts, and on the mind labeling on a valid basis, a designation. That's how things come into existence. Just take a moment, reflect on that, or any idea you have about emptiness. And we're now going to recite some of Tara's mantra. We're going to recite together if you'd like to join. And as we recite, okay, from the Tara at her heart, imagine light rays emanate out to the 10 directions. It blesses all the living beings all over the world, turning them into Tara, freeing them from suffering. And it also makes offerings to all the holy beings. We don't see the holy beings, but imagine they're there, and then they send back all this radiance and blessings to Tara's heart. Again, further energizing her. And all of this radiance begins to cascade out from the seed syllable Tam and her mantra garland at her tiny heart. And all these green nectar rays begin to pour forth from her body, descending down through our crown. So you can also visualize it's coming down through a crown, or you can visualize that it's going out and making offerings to holy beings, or blessing all living beings around us. Either way is fine. And at the bottom of page 9 is her mantra. And we're going to talk more about her mantra tomorrow, but basically it's about dispelling fears and bringing us to the level of insight and wisdom that she has. It's pronounced Om, and if you just want to repeat after me, Om, Tare, Tutare, Ture, Soha. Om, Tare, Tutare, Ture, Soha. Om, Tare, Tutare, Ture, Soha. So we're going to try a little chant first, and then we're going to try to recite some mantras on our own. And I'll give you a sense of how we recite mantras in a group. Okay? So again, getting clear and just imagining as you're first focused on the mantra a little bit, but imagine the Tara is still there over your crown and the nectar and light rays descending. Om Tare, Tutare, Ture, Soha. 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 When you recite in a group and you're reciting a mantra, you do need to recite so that air leaves your mouth and sound is made, but not loud enough to disturb the person next to you. You can also go at any pace that you like. Om Tara Tara. Om Dare Du Dare Du Re So. So imagine right now that the tiny Tara on your crown is very pleased with our practice. Imagine that you have gained some help with whatever you're focused on, whatever problems, whatever clarity you would like, whatever obstacles removed. The more faith you have that something has shifted, the more effective it is. It's not going to solve all your problems, but slowly we chip away. Tara is very pleased. And imagine that she slowly dissolves into the center, into a radiant emerald drop. So from the edges into the center, our visualization. Imagine this radiant emerald drop comes to our crown, slowly melting into us. And feel all the blessings of Aryatara's holy body, holy speech, and holy mind. On page 10, we'll just read these two short dedications. May I quickly become Guru Aryatara, Pagme Droma, and lead each and every sentient being into her enlightened state because of these merits. May the supreme jewel Bodhichitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. And I'd like to turn to the gold prayer book. If we could just, actually I'll just read these since I know we're out of time. And just short, long life prayers for His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Gam ram we ko we jing gam de pendang de wa ma lu jung we ne. So feel free to join in if you know. Chen wei zi guang ten jing ga zhou yi sha pei zi de bar du ten gyun jing. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche's long life, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serves the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Thank you. So we are out of time this evening. I will have some time tomorrow for questions and things like that, but it's good to do a couple of sessions first to see, and we're going to incorporate some Lamrim meditation in that as we go along. I just wanted to give you a little taste. There will be some time for questions and answers. There will be some breaks, just to make it clear for you so that you know what you're doing, and then we'll spend a little bit of weekend getting deeper into the Lamrim and Tara. And you'll probably notice by Sunday, if you come to the whole thing, that there's some shift, there's some nice experience like that. So.